Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be my review of this knife, and this is the Sencut Omniform. And this is the version in Gaborsha wood. And I never really know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I will give it a shot. So this knife was sent to me by Civivi or Sencut for review, and I love getting to check out their knives because I just think that they are so consistently so well made, and I love that they're doing interesting things like this. So specifically, I really like that they are using these wood handles. I love natural materials. I come from traditional pocket knives where natural materials are maybe more common than synthetic materials. And I think it's really great to see these natural materials like wood on modern knives, particularly when they look as good as this. So I think that these are really nice covers, wood covers. I think that this grain is very nice. It's very obviously real wood. It's not like a laminate, and just has really nice grain to it. You can see there's a little knot here on mine. You can see the grain really nicely. I'm really impressed by the look of this Gaborsha wood. Now, I've had other knives from Civivi and Sencut in Gaborsha wood. I have this Civivi Elementum, and you can see it has a much darker look than the Sencut Omniform. I have noticed that there's a little bit of variation, and I don't know if it is a finish that they're using or different finishes, or if it is just kind of differences in the wood, but there is a good amount of variation on these wooden handles from Civivi and Sencut. But I really like the look of this particular Gaborsha wood handle on this Civivi, Sencut Omniform. And speaking of it being kind of interesting, it's also just an interesting design. I would call this almost like a Seax or Sax, however you pronounce that, the traditional Viking or European blade shape. It definitely is towards that. You can see that it has this spine and then this cutoff here that goes down towards the tip, but it's a curved handle, so it's not something like a modified sheepfoot, I would say, or a modified Wharncliffe. This angle is too not abrupt enough on a sheepfoot. I'll show you a traditional sheepfoot. On a sheepfoot, this angle goes kind of more straight up, right, and then curves towards the spine, and that's not the case here on the Omniform. It more goes back, more like a clip point, but it's just not quite like a clip point because it does go down towards the tip more, again, like a Sax. So I don't know that that's an intentional design kind of aspect of this knife to make it intentionally like a Sax or Seax, but that's how I kind of conceptualize this blade as a Seax or Sax blade. And so I like that. It's kind of one of those things that you don't see super often on knives, is this type of blade shape, but I think it's a good blade shape. You get the usable tip, you get some nice gently curved belly, kind of along the whole length of the edge, and then you get the full width of the stock here, so that it's a pretty tall, sturdy blade, and the tallness also helps with the grind. Civivi and Sencut do a great job of their grinds in general, but with this tall blade, I think you get a really nice thin grind for slicing, but you keep some of that strength with, again, the amount of blade that there is. So I really like this blade shape. I found that this knife cuts really well. I used this a good bit in building a chicken coop, and was even cutting some thin plywood with it, and it worked really well. Even like pushing it, like literally pushing the blade through the plywood. It cut really nicely because of that thin grind, and I didn't have any issues with chipping or anything along those lines. So I do like that a lot. And then the handle on this is a pretty classic handle shape. It's a classic knife handle shape with this curved handle towards the butt, curved downward. It's got a nice index finger choil there to put your finger into and kind of lock it in. And for me, I've got pretty, wide hands, but I can get a full 4-finger grip on this knife easily. So you can see that I have no trouble with that at all. And it's a very comfortable handle. If you watch my channel, I think that a simple handle makes for an ergonomic handle, and this is a pretty nice simple handle. Again, just like a classic knife handle shape. So I like the looks and the practical side of the design of this knife. And like I said, as Sencut Civivi WE knives are, it is made really well. So it came nice and centered. It is a little off center now because I did adjust it. It also came with great action, very nice to flip and drop closed. Now, like I said, I used this pretty hard and it did loosen a little bit. The pivot did loosen some. It developed a little bit of side-to-side blade play. So I, put some Loctite on the pivot and readjusted it. And now it's back to, great again. You can see drop closed, really don't even have to shake it. Just drops closed very nicely. And pretty well centered. Not, well, I would say really well centered. Not 100% perfect, slightly towards this side here, but definitely not anywhere near touching the sides. The other thing is that this knife has a lot of milling on the handle liners. So if you see inside there is a lot of milling on this side. And the nice thing about that is you don't really need full length steel liners for the knife to be strong enough. So this gives you that, it gives you the full liners while still having it, save some weight for you. So hopefully you can see in there. I think you probably can. There's a lot of milling. And then on the other side, the other scale, there's also milling. Now there isn't as much because of the lock bar, but there's definitely milling in there also. It's cool that you can see the underside of the wood covers. And then, this is a liner lock. A lot of Sencut knives are liner locks, and it locks up nice and solidly, about 30% across there, something like that. But no forward and back play, and I did adjust it, like I said, but no side-to-side play either, and it didn't come with any. Now, this, as you can see, is in 9CR18 MOV steel. 9CR18 MOV steel is not, your 8CR13, which is a different steel. This is a little higher end steel, maybe towards 440C, something like that, maybe even a little higher than that. But whatever it is, it doesn't really matter too much to me because Civivi, Sencut, whoever is using it in this kind of family constellation of brands, but here, for this knife, Sencut, they do a great job of the heat treat. I have been impressed by, these blade steels from Sencut, Civivi, etc. Like I said, I have used this knife a good bit, and I think that it holds an edge well enough for me. It's not like, S90V or M390 or 204P or whatever, but it's pretty good. And it's not difficult to sharpen at all. I think that I stropped this knife a little bit, and it pretty much brought it back to where I wanted it to be. So it's easy to maintain, particularly with this coated version. Not all of these are coated. There is a green version that does have the coating, and then there's a black handled version without the coating, and then there is this version with the coating. But the coating, actually is pretty nice and smooth, so I don't think that it hurts, the cutting ability, but it, gives you a little bit more corrosion resistance. So overall, just a nice big knife from Sencut. I'll give you a couple size comparisons real quick. Here it is next to a Benchmade full-size Griptilian. You can see that the Omniform is slightly larger. And then here it is next to a kind of dirty Spyderco Military 2. You can see the Military 2 is longer, but the Omniform is a little taller. So it's definitely on the larger end. It's got a 3.65 inch blade, which for me is a great blade length. For a long time I said that I preferred blades in the 3.5 to 4-inch range, but I think now I've kind of landed more in the 3.25 to 3.75 inch range. So this is towards the upper end of blade lengths that I like, but I think for a lot of people it's going to be a pretty large EDC knife. But I think it's, you know, a great size for general use, being that it's relatively thin and has the deep carry pocket clip. It's not too much trouble to carry, built well, looks great, just an overall great knife from Sencut, and specifically considering the price. This knife in this wood version, the wood version, which is the most expensive of them, is under $45. And I think that that is like a really, really good value. Considering the quality that I have seen, that I have had from Sencut, considering the really nice, at least on mine, Gaborsha wood handles, and just the nice design, like I think under $45 is a heck of a price on this Sencut Omniform. So the other versions are even less. So the uncoated black version is $40. The green version is $39. So, you know, you can get this knife in a different version for under $40. I think it's a great deal. I think that Sencut is really putting out really good values. So I have really enjoyed getting to check it out, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave any comments below, subscribe to the channel, click the bell and select all so you know when I post new videos, and go to knifethoughts.com where I post articles on knives like this and knife related topics, and subscribe via email. I'm going to try to move towards using that more and social media less, so make sure you're subscribed there. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.